Welcome to the How to Learn Spanish podcast, episode 13, Plan a Trip to a Spanish-Speaking Country. In this episode of the podcast, I'm going to elaborate on the reason for this, the reason why I believe this is a very, very important step in becoming fluent in Spanish. Before we get started with this episode of the podcast, I just want to remind you to check out the course that goes hand in hand with this podcast called Fluency Hour. In Fluency Hour, you're going to work together with me for 1 month. I'm going to be sending you daily emails, daily assignments, along with these emails, giving you a step-by-step process on how to go from a complete beginner to an intermediate level of fluency in Spanish. Now, with that being said, I never will make the claim that you're going to do this in a month. That is impossible. But the goal of the course, the goal of the program, is to help you build a foundation, to show you the ropes, hold you hand in hand, show you the ropes on how to go from a complete beginner or a low level of Spanish to a relatively high intermediate level. So what we do in Fluency Hour, you're going to get daily emails. I'm going to give you tips, advice, step-by-step type of methodology, and I'm also going to give you assignments. We also have a Facebook group where you have access to me. You can ask me any questions that come up, anything at all. And even after the course is over, you're still in the group. You can still blast out messages there, and I'll probably respond within 24 hours. Typically, that's always the case. So check it out, and that's all we have. So let's get started today. So today we're talking about the next step in your Spanish learning journey. And that, in my opinion, should be to begin planning some sort of trip to a Spanish-speaking country. I know this is not going to work for everybody, okay? I completely get it. Some of you guys might have kids, other responsibilities, jobs that just you can't get away, families that are demanding a lot of things, or you might have something else going on that is impeding you from doing this. But if you've made it to this point in the podcast, if you've made it to this point in your Spanish learning journey, you know, you've gone through steps 1 to 12 and you're actively doing all these things that I'm recommending. You know, I really think that you're a pretty serious Spanish student at this point, and you really owe it to yourself to take things to the next level, to keep pushing things forward, because that's ultimately how you do become fluent in Spanish or in any other language, literally any other language. Now, you can sit at home and do everything that I'm recommending online, except for this. It's because it's kind of hard to do online, right? But you can do all these other things online, and that is completely fine. So what I think doing a trip to a Spanish-speaking country is going to do, even if it's a 1-week trip, number one is it's going to allow you to practice your Spanish. Of course, you're going to actually be able to hit the ground and practice real life, live action Spanish. You're going to actually be able to use in a very, very, very practical way everything that you've been training, all the linguistic skills you've been developing, which is very cool in my opinion. I think that's great. The second reason, and this is really the main reason, I think, for taking a trip when you've been studying a language for a while, like several months or maybe even 6 months or maybe even a year, you should then take a trip. The reason for this is going to be because your motivation and your inspiration to keep pushing it further and further is going to explode. And as I mentioned back in the very, very beginning of this podcast, in the very, very, like episode 0, episode 1, I believe, I talk about motivation and why it's so incredibly important to learning a language. Like you can study a language like on your own, and you know the typical person, 99.9% of people are just going to burn out when the motivation runs out. But if you keep that motivation, that little fire, you can think of it as like a little flame, a little mini bonfire. That's your motivation. You keep piling wood on. You keep throwing a little bit of gasoline on it. You keep, just kind of, like stoking the flames. You keep doing that over time, and that fire, your motivation, will continue to burn. It's happened to me a couple times in life. Over the past decade or more, where my motivation is just almost like poofed out, like just gotten to almost going out entirely, and I was able to fire it back up And not just with language learning, but just kind of my work life, certain hobbies. But, I really am talking about language learning as well. Like that's happened to me on many occasions with Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, and French, my core languages. The fire is almost burned out. And so it can happen. And, with Spanish, for example, I've gone over the past couple of years, I've gone through moments where I'm just here in the US, living in Texas, I'm living in California now, and I'm just going through the motions. I'm working, I'm doing all my day-to-day life stuff, and I don't get down to Mexico or another Spanish-speaking country. And I noticed that really has, like, I still am reading in Spanish and listening to Spanish and watching things and, speaking Spanish with my wife, Rennie, at the house. Like, we do all that stuff on a very, very regular basis, but like, it's just not the same. Like when I go to visit her family in Mexico, or I went to Playa del Carmen earlier this year, just by myself for like a 2-week trip, met up with a friend. We traveled around, did some fun stuff, and my Spanish motivation just roared back. It's such a cool feeling. Because you're using it in real time. You actually need it. It's essential. It's not just something you're doing for fun or out of, as a hobby. It's legitimately essential when you're in the country where the language is spoken and you really need it. And you're connecting with people. You're meeting people. You're reconnecting with friends, or you're making new friends. If you're single, you're meeting a guy or a girl, and all that kind of stuff is super motivating. And when you're using your language skills to connect with people and to get by and to survive and thrive, it's really cool. Highly, highly recommended as a next step. I can't stress that enough. I really can't. Let's see if there's anything else I have here. Yeah, I just want to capitalize on that. Learn on top of that, what I just mentioned, I just want to say that learning a language is far too much work to do it willingly day in and day out. At some point, you're going to burn out. Like if you're studying Spanish every single day, doing the things that I'm recommending, without the next level of motivation, you will burn out. It's just a, and I don't mean to say this like, oh, you're lazy. No, we all will burn out. It's too much work. It's too much like brain power and repetition required. So you need to stay inspired and stay motivated. And I think going and doing cool trips in Spanish-speaking countries is going to be the way to keep that going, right? So just keep in mind, in a trip, even if it's just a week trip, that's going to be better, far better than doing nothing. If you can go for a couple weeks or a month, or hell, if you can even go for many months, that is incredible, a great opportunity. I highly, highly recommend it. If you're serious about becoming fluent in Spanish as an adult, it's the next step to take. But that's pretty much all I have for this episode. Like, there's no point in me blabbing on anymore. But I'll stop here. I think this is a really straightforward next step, but I think it's an essential one that I wanted to touch on. But yeah, make sure to follow me at Mexican Fluency. That is my main website. That is my main social media channel. I've recently started taking TikTok seriously, and it's kind of blown up. Like I have, as of right now, 22,000 and some odd followers there, which is pretty cool. Lots of interaction. Lots of people are asking questions, and I'm doing daily lessons. I'm answering student questions, and I'm also posting, doing listening lessons where I'm taking a native Spanish speaker conversation or TikTok video, and I'm putting my video side by side and just kind of watching the video. And in the video that I post, I'm posting a couple of words, keywords, or sentences of the Mexican Spanish that you're hearing, and highlighting that. And then in the comments of the video, I'm putting the translations, roughly what they mean. So it's pretty cool. I have some great ideas for different things that I'm going to be doing in the future there. So follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Obviously, follow the podcast. You can go to MexicanFluency.com and just get links to everything. That's the easiest way to go about it. So if you have any questions, just hit me up, Levi at MexicanFluency.com. I'm an open book, guys. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to help. And make sure, if you're interested, join Fluency Hour. It's a great course. You can also access that through my website. It's a phenomenal course. It's 1 month long. It's every single day, and you're going to get a lot out of it, I promise. So that's all. And until next episode, adios.